Today is Monday, July 7th, 2025, and it is Yom Sheni, the second day of the week, 11 Tammuz, 5785. July 7th, 2025, 11 Tammuz, 5785, Parshat Balak, and the Daf Yomi is Avodah Zarah 19. And what I'm holding up here is called the PL-89 Thought Calendar. It's also known as the Mercury Thought Calendar and the Mercury Gematria Calendar, or the PL-89 Gematriatic Calendar. Any one of those things. And sometimes I just refer to it as the PL-89. The vision for this calendar came to me in this late summer of 2012, which is this summer is going to be 13 years, and it is a lunar and solar calendar. It combines the Hebrew calendar and the Gregorian calendar and the Julian calendar. The Julian calendar is the calendar that was the secular or the Christian calendar before the Reform came by Pope Gregory the 13th in 1582. This takes into consideration those three dates, holds them in one calendar, and it also is based on the planet Mercury. There's many different data about Mercury, and the few bits of data that are the most pertinent to this calendar is, according to published data, you never know what's accurate and what's not, but when I look at many published, supposedly what should be credible sources, the orbital period of Mercury around the Sun of Earth days is 87.9691, which is just about 88 days, which is pretty much 90 days. So this calendar maps out 89 days. 89 or 90 days, 90 days or even 91 days, but it's a quarter of a year because a Mercury year, meaning a Mercury to revolve around the Sun, is a quarter of an Earth year, because it makes a full orbit around the Sun about 88 days. And that is based on a pasuk in the Torah, a verse in the book of Exodus, concerning the first Redeemer, Moshe Rabbeinu, Moses, our teacher of blessed memory, where it says in Exodus chapter 2 that when she saw that, meaning his mother saw that he was good and she could no longer hide him, well, she hid him for 3 months. In Hebrew. And so that's what this calendar is based on, 3 months. And that time period is considered, for this calendar work, it's considered a mercurial year. And there's 4 of these years in our year. So in every season, every Tekufah, as it's known in Hebrew, Tekufas Tammuz, Tekufas Tishrei, Tekufas Teves, and Tekufas Nisan. These 4 Tekufas, those are each considered a year in this calendar. And the purpose of this calendar is to find mathematical consensus on all sorts of truth claims, all sorts of ideas that are brought forth. And if we can see it numerically, if we can see it mathematically, well, it brings a whole new dimension to what we're looking at. That's the basic idea, and there's other applications to it in more of a secular domain, secular field, such as finance and data management, data flow, and things like that nature. But primarily it's used to decode various questions that may be asked in the Torah. And it's a historical calendar as well as a current calendar. It parallels historical data and facts, and parallels them to what's happening right now. And the reason why it's called the thought calendar is that there are certain readings in the Hebrew, in the synagogue, and that we read them certain times a year, and those readings are equated or managed with numbers. And these numbers, the question that this seeks to answer, is there a pattern, a suggestion, a intentionality, I don't know how else to describe it, but a plan on why these numbers show up when they do. Times of the year, birthdays, historical events, current events. So every day, every day has a box with a number in it. And these amount of boxes that you're looking at right now is 80 boxes. Another reason why it's called the PL-89 is that what you're looking at is 80 because it's 8 columns and 10 rows. But underneath the bottom, there's an invisible row that accounts for the last, depending on the type of month it is. On the Gregorian calendar, you have 30 or 31 days, so it varies. But this last, it will account for the last 10 days of every 90-day period. Every 10 or maybe 11 days, or in some cases 9 days. Let's say in the case of February, where there's a few less days, but it depends on the format. So that's a lot of data which would take up too much time to explain now. And I've explained them in previous videos, and maybe I'll explain them in future videos. Probably I will. But the purpose of these daily videos is to look at each day and to try to bridge a gap between the subjective, which means what I observe, and what everyone else around me observes. I'm looking for consensus. I'm not looking to have my own observation. I'm looking to create consensus between many people who see the same thing, and therefore we can come up with objective theorems, objective postulates, objective calculations, objective analysis on scientific, verifiable, mathematical, numerical data that occurs on a collective, objective level, and subject our questions of truth claims through the crucible of a numerical system that is Torah-based and based on the simple meaning of the text, and not anything esoteric or mystical or speculative or based on a certain interpretation where it can be many people can give many interpretations. No, it's based on counting. Can you count? If you can count it, then you can verify it. Then that's the criteria for it. So, for example, if the verse says in Leviticus chapter 25, verse 20, around there, that area, in regards to the sabbatical year, if it says, "What will we eat if we haven't sown for the whole year of the sabbatical year?" and it addresses a question that may be a little bit lacking in faith. It says, the verse says, "I will command my blessing for the 6th, the 7th, and the 8th year." I don't remember exactly, but it says an exact number. And that's not based on interpretation. There's 3 years of blessing, and it says you will have enough until the 8th year when you're still eating from the old crop, until the 9th year. Those numbers are absolutely objective. There's no interpretation to it. It's the 8th year and the 9th year. Sabbatical is the 7th year. That's the model of the use of this calendar. So, on calendars that many people use, the Jewish people, whether they're observant, whatever level of observance, Orthodox, Reformed, Conservative, even non-affiliated, but if they want to look at a Jewish calendar, Hebrew calendar, they're going to look at the calendar that we have, the rabbinic or Hebrew calendar that was established some 1,500 or 1,700 years ago or something like that. It's like in 358, I think, by Hillel, not the Hillel the elder, but Hillel the smaller, I think, is what his name is, Hillel. So every day has a box number, and I've been noticing some incredible correlations between things that are objective. For example, In the Daf Yomi system of learning, it's objective. Every person in the entire world today, if they're on schedule, they're going to learn page 19 of Avodah Zarah. And if you learn page 18, then you're behind one. And if you learn page 20, then you're ahead one. But if you learn 19, then you're on the Daf, and these are published in the Daf Yomi calendar. So it's not subjective. It's not up to your interpretation. It's based on the official establishment of the numbers of the Daf. Just as this year, according to another establishment of the calendar, is 5785. According to another establishment, it's 2025. Millions upon millions of people agree to the same exact numbers. There is consensus, and it's verifiable, it's historical, and it's predictable, because I can say, next year, I can't say whether I'm going to be alive this year, next year, this time. I can't verify that. But I can say that if I am alive, God willing, and anyone else who is, then you can say with certainty that the Daf Yomi will be this page, because there are a certain amount of pages. I think you get the idea. Don't want to belabor the point. So those type of ideas are what this calendar is based on. I like to connect it with my Parsha, because my Bar Mitzvah Parsha is Korach. And Korach, as we know, and maybe some people don't know, but if you read the story, the biblical account of Korach in the Bible, Numbers chapter 16, and he rebelled against Moses, and what happened is that the ground opened up and he fell into the ground. So I had a little joke, but it's a lot of truth to it. So if I was like Korach, and I fell in the ground, and I had to somehow work my way out of the ground, then there would be nothing that I could use to get out of the ground except for the ground itself. And that's a metaphor, meaning, let's just say, just for argument's sake, it's kind of a joke that I made, but there's a lot of truth to this joke, and that's where mathematics comes into this whole thing. If Korach fell on the earth, and God said, let's just say, God said to Korach, you've been burning up there for a long time, been suffering, and wherever you're down, buried in this miserable place. I'll let you come out, but you know what? You're going to have to climb out. What Korach would do is he would try to figure out just the whole environment, the parameters, the rocks. He'd try to figure out how to physically climb out, and he'd have the permission to do it. So he'd have to only use what he would have right there, the ground. And that's the basis of mathematics. Mathematics is you're not doing anything mystical. You're only using scientifics, data, mathematics, numbers, adding, subtracting, dividing, multiplying. And so that's the basis of this calendar. And so with that, every day this box, now the way the numbers are made on this calendar are based on verses in Leviticus 20:25, 25:20. We're in the year 2025, which is another mathematical, I don't say joke, but like a nice little cute thing. In the Daf Yomi of the Merkaz Daf Yomi, Eli Stefanski would say the kiss from Hashem. I like to say that because I started this 13 years ago, and we're in the year of 2025, and the verse that was based on is from Vayikra 25:20. I don't know how that happened, but there's many of these cute things that happen, and I've seen so many of them that I don't think they're cute anymore. I think they're just part of how God has woven the world together through mathematics, through numbers. But at any rate, today, July 7th, on this calendar, at this time, the box number is number 9. With reason that the sequence of numbers, I can explain at a different time, but if you look very closely, this box number right here is 9. That's July 7th. The Hebrew calendar is the 11th day of Tammuz. So according to this calendar system, the mathematics, it's known as a +4 or a -4 reality, which means that the difference between the Gregorian and the Hebrew calendar there's always a certain number. This month it happens to be plus 4, meaning July 7th plus 7 plus 4 is 11. July 7 plus 4 is 11. But this year we had some interesting, an anomaly where 2 months was a plus 0, which means that after Hanukkah, Teves Aleph was 1st of January. And that rarely happens in a year or 2 years or 3 years, but this year it happened twice. Which is a study in and of itself, meaning that Aleph Tevet, 1 Tevet was January 1st. And the whole January paralleled exactly the whole month of Teves. The same thing happened again, in February it was a plus 2, and then because of February's 28, it made it so that Adar 1 was March 1st. And the whole March was the same way that January was. Okay. But anyway, this month and in June it was a plus 4. That being said, and by the way, the month that Corona came out was a plus 4 as well. I've been making these charts since the turn of the century, meaning 2020, which was Tafshin Pei. Today is 9 on the Gregorian calendar, and it is 3 on the Hebrew calendar, which means that 11th day of the month will find yourself in box 3. I'll just read the week of the calendar, okay? July 7th is 9, so it goes 9, 18, 26, 35, and then 3. 11 Tammuz will be 3. So there are a few ways that you can analyze this. If we're in a 9 and a 3, the first way to analyze it is to say 93, because both boxes are equal, the sun and the moon. There's a pasuk in Tehillim, and in Psalm 72 it says, Lifnei Yereach, Shemesh, Lifnei Yereach, something like that. It puts out the sun and the moon. Lifnei HaShemesh, Lifnei Yereach, Im HaShemesh, V'Lifnei Yereach, Dor Dorim, that's what it was. So that's also what this calendar is based on, with the sun and the moon. So then you can go 93, or you can say 39. Okay? The thing that happened today that matches this perfectly without trying to be too mystical or trying to make any cute things. The 19th Tegu, when I started the Tekus it's a whole other long thing. It's going to take a lot of time. Anyway, I do the Tekus because the Tekus will be answered with the coming of Messiah. So today is the 19th Tegu, and the 19th Tegu occurs in Tractate Shabbat 91a. Now that's already interesting in its own right, because you can do permutations. 19 is a permutation of 19. But what does that have to do with this? Because 9, and another principle is that you can go what's next to it. So 9 is next to a 1. So in the calendar, 91 is a 19. Right, literally, you can see right here. 91, 19. So today, according to the schedule of Tekus, it happens to be a 19th Teku, but it occurs in Shabbos 91a. Okay, that's not mystical. That's just like amazing. Okay. Now, remember, you might remember that I mentioned the Julian calendar. On the Julian calendar, which is 13 days behind the Gregorian calendar, the Julian calendar would be June 24th. Today is June 24th, so to speak. It's like, it's not June 24th because it's July 7th, but 13 days behind. So, on this calendar, June 24th, today, the Julian calendar today, comes out in box 19. See? That's a really neat. So that means that today's date, according to the Julian calendar, is directly connected to today's date if you use the cuboid system. Not 19, and then over here, 13 days ago, if you look at the 19 very carefully, it's next to a 10, which is also, it mimics the thing like 1019. You could very much see the same pattern as 1 and 9. Okay, that's that there's more things, and I'm running out of time, and so I want to get them all in. Today's Daf Yomi is Avodah Zarah 19. So that directly matches 19, the cuboid of July 7th. The cuboid of July 7th is 19, and today's Daf Yomi is 19. Okay? It gets better. Today is 11th of Tammuz, which is 3. So remember, you can go 3 and 9, because it's 11th and the 7th. So 3 and 9, so then it could be 9 3 also, right? Because permutations are permittable. They're not only permittable, they're actually preferable. Okay, permutations are not only permissible, but they're preferable. For many reasons. But what is 9-3 about today? If you go into the Daf Yomi, you will find they're doing a lot of darshaning meaning explaining the verses of Psalm 1, but it also raises another. I'll just read this here because Proverbs 9:3. I'm not kidding. You can look it up for yourself. Look it up for yourself. You got the joke. Anyway, okay. So Rava raises a contradiction between two verses. It is written that in Proverbs it talks about wisdom, how wisdom is personified, and it calls people. So it could be like the Torah. The Torah sits in the highest places of the city, and then Rava raises sort of they call it a stira here, but it says that Rava says that it's written about Chachman that it's it says I'll just read it. Shalcha narosea tikra al gape merome karet. She sent her maidens, she calls on the wings of the heights of the city. That's 3-9. So how is it that in this Daf Yomi that is on the day, on this calendar of 3 and 9, 9 and 3, how is it that the Daf actually references from Mishlei at that exact chapter and verse number? How did that happen? Why did that happen? I didn't make that happen. Can you explain how that happened? Anyway, I'm just getting carried away there. But I think you get the idea. Okay? So, but it gets better. You go to Mishlei 9:14. The contradiction is it says that wisdom is not only in a high place, but she sits on a chair. So then Rava is asking, is it calling you to the high place, or is it calling you to a chair in a kisei, to the chair in the high place, or does she sit on the chair? I wasn't exactly sure, but either way, it doesn't matter. Because in English gematria means A equals 1, B equals 2, C equals 3, and then Z equals 26. The word chair, chair, you guessed it, equals 39. Again, another verse from the thing is actually 39. And some people who don't like gematria would say, you can do whatever you want, and you can't do whatever you want. You can't make it that Mishlei would come on today's daf. And you can't make it that this date would be on this calendar. You just can't. I mean, it's not something that you're forcing. You're not putting a square peg into a round hole. You're observing the shape of the reality and seeing how it's made. And so chair equals 39. And Rava answers that when you first start learning, you're called to the high place, and then afterward, you're called into the chair. Once you start gaining some proficiency, in the beginning, you don't really have a place to sit down. You kind of just, and it's true. I mean, when you start learning Torah, it's difficult. You don't really, you're kind of floating around. You're all over the place. But then, after a while, when you get a system of learning, then you get a chair, so to speak. You sit down, you get established. All these words happened today when the calendar is 3 and 9. And it's based on observable, objective mathematical data. Everyone in the world agrees today is July 7th. Everyone in the world agrees that today is the 11th of Tammuz. And one more thing, because the cuboid is on 3:12. See 3 right here? 3. It's next to 12. Now, remember we said that permutations are not only permissible, but they're preferable. Now, 312 is actually 132. Does anyone know what parsha we started this week? Balak. Balak is Gematria 132. And I said this about yesterday, but if you go across the calendar and you see 321, it's the same Balak. I mean, 321 would be the same thing as 312. But Balak is equal to 132, but still, it's a permutation. And so it's true that every 3 digits have 6 combinations, but still, there's millions of combinations. I mean, millions, I'm saying, of all 3-digit numbers, for it to come out on this week and on this week of the calendar, it's still pretty a high probability that it wouldn't happen more than it would happen. So that's an explanation of the PL-89 calendar for July 7th, 2025, which is the 11th day of Tammuz, 5785, Parshas Balak. 132, which is 132, Daf Yomi, 39, 93, 39, Proverbs 93. Thank you.